bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, what up? Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Wednesday, August 2nd, 213 days into the new year, just 152 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in downtown Burbank, California, and I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Oh, man, how you doing? Tonight we have a very special guest with us. Don Schmitt is here. We're going to talk about his new book, Coverup at Roswell. Tomorrow night is not another Fader night. Tomorrow night will be our tribute to Jim Mars. Our 700th show couldn't have been scheduled or been more appropriate. And that's what we are going to do tomorrow night. We're going to have John Rappaport here, too, as well, with his No More Fake Newsroom live. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio, Facebook, YouTube. Everything is Fade to Black. JChurchRadio, you know what to do. Follow, like, and subscribe over on our website. The Sandbox is hashtag F2B on Twitter. We don't bite. Come and hang out with us. Hashtag F2B. Any questions or comments during the show tonight? Of course, you can use hashtag F2BQ. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Yes, we do have the very sad news. Our community lost a family member. Jim Mars passed away last night at his home in Texas. He was 73 years young, and tomorrow night we will celebrate his life. And I thought about it, about what, how to handle the show tonight. It ain't about all of that. Tomorrow night, let's have some fun. He was an amazing man. Yes, we'll be talking about Jim tonight. I'll share some stories, and we kind of got to do that, and that's what we do, right? Okay, but I spoke to his wife Carol a couple of times today, and the message is this. I mean, look, Jim was a very bright, cool, smart, intelligent, great author, researcher. And very few people get a chance to go out there and change the world. Well, Jim did that, and he did that for all of us, and you heard it in his voice, and you heard it in his laugh, and his conviction, and it forced you to sit up and pay attention. And I have so many memories. Rita and I spent a lot of time together with Jim. And he was just great, right? But anyway, there was a moment. I'll share this before we move on, because we'll talk a little bit more about Jim. But I was hosting a panel, and it was funny because there were so many people there, and he started to speak, and I remember the crowd was murmuring and, talking and stuff. And then he spoke, and you could have heard a pin drop. right? And I was just watching everybody and their react, and it was just crazy how that guy had the gift of communication. The gift, right? And he knew that. He had the hat, he had the beard, he had the glasses, he had the look, he had the voice, and he had the knowledge. He had all of that, right? He was the complete package. And it was just one of those moments. And I sat back and I thought, man, I need to learn something from this guy, right? And I did. Jim was the best. So with that, what I wanted to say was I was talking with his wife, Carol, today. And I said, Carol, I said, why don't you go and get one of his beers from the refrigerator? And she goes, Jimmy, I'm already on my second Dos Equis, his favorite beer. And so to you, Jim, there's a Dos Equis right there. And I'm going to pop this baby open live on the air. And here's to you, Jim. Jim Mars, the best. One more. All right. Okay. I needed that. All day today, I'm looking at pictures of Jim and just reading stuff, and it's like, man, this sucks. But he would have been yelling and screaming. Trust me, he knows that people loved and adored him, and he had his critics, but people listened, and he knows, man. He knows we're all tripping right now, and I'm serious about this. He would tell us to nut it up. He would. Church, just do the show, man. All right. Jim Mars would have been 73. Wow. Okay, here we go. Let's get the show cracking. All right. Subscribe to our podcast, blah, blah, blah. Join the membership page, blah, blah, blah. Of course, all of our sponsors, Life Change Tea, GetTheTea.com, River Moon Coffee, New Pharma, Ancient Life Oil, and Studio Dome Speakers. All of the banners are over at JimmyChurchRadio.com with the promo codes right there. Life Change Tea's new promo code is FADER, F-A-D-E-R, either online or over the phone, and you'll get yourself from some free shipping. With that, let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today. Kevin Smith is 47 years old. Edward Furlong today is 40. And before you say, whatever happened to Edward Furlong, right? He's been completely active. The guy is always acting. Yeah, of course, Terminator 2 and his discovery, but he was really good in a movie called Pecker. And if you haven't seen Pecker, go see Pecker. It's an absolutely amazing movie. Check out Pecker. Happy birthday, Edward Furlong. Our dead guy's birthday today, Wes Craven. 1939 to 2015. Director who introduced us to, of course, the terrifying Freddy Krueger and all of the Nightmare on Elm Street series. And then he redefined the horror genre with his semi-satirical horror comedy Scream films. He also directed The Hills Have Eyes, The Last House on the Left, and Red Eye. I'll tell you a funny story. I was at LAX, and there's a limo driver standing next to me, and he's holding up a sign that says Wes Craven. Right? I'm looking at him, and I'm like, what are you doing holding up a Wes Craven sign? And people are coming down this escalator, and they're walking by to go, and everybody's seeing this Wes Craven sign and stopping. And I watched, it went from nobody to like 150 people standing behind this dude. I'm not making this up. And as I stand there, Wes Craven is coming down the escalator, and he's all dressed in black, by the way, black black on black. And he looks at the dude with the Wes Craven sign, and he sees the 150 people in the flash, the autograph, and he walks up, and he was not happy. I was like, what are you doing? Oh, man. Anyway, I don't know what made me think of that. On this day in history, OTD, 1990, Iraq invades Kuwait. Yeah. And a week later, on August 9th, Operation Desert Shield kicks off, the American defense of Saudi Arabia. It began as United States forces started racing to the Persian Gulf. And here we are, 27 years later, we're still there on this day in history. Fader fact. In the 19th century, the United States Supreme Court faced a question. And the question was, for the Supreme Court, are tomatoes fruits or vegetables? They ruled vegetable. Why? Back then, vegetables had a 10% import tax, and fruits had nothing. And that's why, right there, that's why tomatoes are called vegetables. That is a Fader fact. All right, tonight, very special guest, Don Schmitt, is here and his new book, Coverup at Roswell. I've got the book right here, and it's great, by the way. I've been reading it. Here it is right there, Coverup at Roswell, and it's packed. It's packed. We'll talk about that tonight, and Roswell, and of course, I'm sure Don has got a few Jim Mars stories as well. Tomorrow night, we're going to do a tribute for Jim Mars, and we're going to go through, and of course, we're going to pick out some audio sound bites, and we'll do that. We'll play some highlights of Jim on Fade to Black over the years. There's been a lot of really classic moments, so we're going to do that tomorrow night, and of course, take your phone calls, and John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom will be here as well. Okay. I wanted to share a couple of things that I don't think we'll have the time to do tomorrow. But Jim Mars and I had a few really cool moments lately. And he got sick right before Contact in the Desert. And he couldn't make it to Contact. And so Peter Levenda filled in for Jim and came out. And, that's what friends do when we were talking about that. And at the time, his kidneys and dialysis and so forth. Now, Jim had told me a few times that, I might be able to get through this and there's all of that. But we were pretty bummed out there at Contact in the Desert. So I got up for one of the panels, and I called Jim live, right in front of the audience, got him on speakerphone, and he got to hear the crowd yell, and yell they did. And it was a really, really cool, special moment. And he was always, we did so many conferences together, and to have him not be there, it was a bummer, but I was able to do that. And what I wanted to ask, if anybody out there listening right now has that moment on video, if you shot it on your cell phone and you have the video, could you please send the video to us? I would like to have a copy of that, and I would also like to, because I don't, and I would like to be able to play that tomorrow night on the show, because it was really, really cool, and it was a cool moment, and that was just in May, right? We're sitting here on August 2nd, right? So May, June, July, August, 3 months, and it isn't tomato a fruit? Not according to the United States Supreme Court. I just read you that Fader fact, Mark. Come on. Something lost in the translation between English and Australian, apparently. But I was able to do that. And so after we got back to L.A., and I was trying to talk to Jim as much as I could, but I knew that he was doing the dialysis and what is involved with that. I just didn't want to feel like I was bothering him, but I couldn't help myself. I was calling him constantly. And then this happened last week. I get this text, and I'm driving in the car, and you're not supposed to, don't text and drive. But I look at my phone, and it says Jim Mars passed away today. And I freaked, right? And I went, no. So I called Jim, and he picks up, Jim Mars speaking. I said, you're alive. And he goes, yes. Are you? And I said, well, I'm driving my car. I hope I am. And he goes, I hope you are too. And we just laughed about it. And there you go, And so at least, I was able to, for all of his, just to get him back on the phone and just to say hello, because I freaked. And I didn't expect that today was here. He sounded fine. He was cheerful and upbeat. Today just caught us all by surprise. And so there you go. Okay, all right. We'll talk more about Jim later, because there's a couple of other things that he would definitely enjoy the news about. And one of them, it got released yesterday. And NASA has a top-tier job, an opening right now. You can apply for it, for a planetary protection officer, a PPO, they're calling it, a planetary protection officer, a position you've likely never heard of, and that you might at first glance, it sounds like a joke, but the position, however, dates back to the Outer Space Treaty of 1967. And NASA is one of just 2 space agencies to have a full-time position dedicated to the role of a PPO. So what does a PPO actually do? Here's how NASA's job posting describes the position, which pays, by the way, between $124,400 to $187,000 per year. $187,000 per year. The planetary protection is concerned with the avoidance of organic, constituent, and biological contamination in human and robotic space exploration. NASA maintains policies for planetary protection applicable to all space flight missions that may intentionally or unintentionally carry Earth organisms and organic constituents to the planets or other solar system bodies, and any mission employing spacecraft which are intended to return to Earth and its biosphere with samples from extraterrestrial targets of exploration. This policy is based on federal requirements and international treaties and agreements. In other words, the PPO makes certain that the Earth is not contaminated by extraterrestrial life forms that may arrive via a meteorite or by deliberately bringing something back to Earth for further analysis. And at the same time, it ensures that the vehicles and the satellites we send off planet are as clean as possible to limit the chance of introducing our own life forms into the ecosystem of another planet. Now, this NASA job offer comes on the heels of a pretty remarkable year of ET announcements. The ones that I do every single day on this show. It's all I do is talk about this. Okay? First came the suggestion, remember this last year, that an alien megastructure had been observed around KIC 486-2852, otherwise known as Tabby's Star. Months later, people were talking about a signal by a Russian telescope that some thought was transmitted from another stellar star cousin of our sun. And then not long after that, now, if you remember, those FSBs were coming in, and they still are. And it seems like every other day there's another FSB, without exaggeration, being heard and listened to from somewhere out there. Those have not stopped, and we haven't been able to figure that out. And then not long ago, the Arecibo antenna in Puerto Rico reported weird signals that seem to come from the dwarf star Ross 128, which is, it's pretty close, actually. It's 11 light years away. So you have to ask yourself, what preparations are in place to deal with the discovery of a radio signal or a laser flash or some biological entity that, not an EBE, but how about something microbial that would be brought back here, hence the PPO. So that's part of a plan in place with a PPO, a staff officer to deal with this. But what else is out there going on? Because when we have the alien megastructure out of Tabby Star, we have all of these FSBs that are coming in. We have the discovery of exoplanets every single day. There's another one that's added to the list, if not more, right? We have the Arecibo discoveries that are going on right now. So you have to wonder, what the talk of laser flashes lately is kind of tripping me out. Who has seen a laser flash? Somebody has. My point being, somebody on this planet somewhere has seen something laser-like come from somewhere out there. Because I've never heard discussion of laser flashes like I've heard over the last 3 weeks. So something is going on there too. So what's the plan? I really want to know. A lot of people think there is a plan. I think there's a secret one. Does the government have a plan? If we got some kind of laser flash, some crazy contact, the film, radio contact, that something that was definitive, that not for us, because we know that there's life out there. We know this, but for the rest of the world, that definitive, beyond the doubt moment that there is life out there. Does the government have a plan? Does anyone? A recent survey indicated that 55% of the population figure that the discovery of extraterrestrials will be squelched. Deep sixed. That's right. Why? To prevent widespread panic. Only 19% believe the feds would fess up to ET's existence. Now, I want to know who those 19%ers are, by the way. Back in 1989, check this out. When a now defunct NASA program to search for the extraterrestrial intelligence was starting to gain steam, protocols were drafted to spell out the best practices in case ET contacted us. Now, I've read the 2-page document. Okay? I should post it up for everybody. And there are really only 3 important components in the protocol text. 3. First, the detection of alien life should be carefully verified by repeated observations. Now, we have to look at that statement and why that there is a concern there. If it gets discovered, if something comes in, there are going to be dozens, if not hundreds, of confirmation coming from around the world, both professional and amateur. It will be, everybody will be all over it. It's not going to be some big secret. It's not going to be able to be kept from the public. Okay? So that carefully verified statement that they have in the protocols, it is going to be verified no matter what it is. It's just going to come in. Second, they say in the document, in the protocols, that the discovery should be publicized. They think we should go public with it out of the gate. Verify it, even if it takes 10 minutes. Literally, verify, boom, get it out there. The third point in this, are you ready? The third point is no response should be sent. Responding to the signal should be sent back, no reply, without international consultation. What they don't want apparently, is somebody out there that may not know what they're doing or know what they are saying to turn around and immediately do a reply. Now, what that says to me is this. When you say something, look at the opposite. I say it all the time. Flip it over 180 degrees. It seems to me that with the fast radio bursts, with the exoplanets, with what's going on at Arecibo, and these comments about laser and laser flashes and the alien megastructure and the Dyson sphere, all of this talk is commonplace. So what is it? There is something going on. Mark my words. I feel that something is going on, and it's about to break out. I am not going on the conspiracy bandwagon. I don't want to be that guy that's broadcasting from a mountaintop with a little secret radio antenna and is all paranoid, living in a motor home. No, that's not where I'm coming from here. We've never had discussions like this before in human history. Something is about to break, and it's about to break right now. And the other thing, going back to Jim Mars, of all the guys out there that talked about conspiracies and that did the research and got it done, right? Man left this earth today, and it's about to break out. So is he going to miss it? This is the other point. This is where I want to wrap up, and I'm going to get Don in here. The talk about what is really going on out there, the one guy that knows right now, his name is Jim Mars. So, Jim, I know you're listening. I know you are. Give us a sign. Tweet. Somebody just said in Twitter, I saw it as it went by, make Jimmy's show crash 3 times tonight. Let us know you're listening. This is Fade to Black. Don Schmitt is here. His new book, right here, Coverup at Roswell. We'll be discussing this and a whole lot more. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back with Don Schmitt. Stay with me.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. Let's wind the clocks back 60 years. Food was different. Food provided health and nutrition, and using supplements was minimal. Unfortunately, now we have chemicals, GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides that can be quite lethal in the name of our food supply and, of course, the ever-loving dollar. Supplementing our diets can be very important to stay healthy. Cleansing from daily intruders to the body might be critical. Live strong and take charge. Log on to getthetea.com. Our herbal tea is a great way to cleanse from intruders. Our supplements is a great way to maintain and improve your health. When your health is not up to par, go to getthetea.com. No GMOs, no fillers, and organic, and very helpful in keeping you at the top of your game. Life is too short to feel, you know what I mean. Stay in the game, at the top of your game with GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Again, GetTheT.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at kgraradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. kgraradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Very simple. Get it done. Our guest tonight, Don Schmitt. He is the former co-director of the J. Allen Hynek Center for UFO Studies in Chicago, where he served as director of special investigations for 10 years. Prior to that time, he was a special investigator for the late Dr. J. Allen Hynek and the art director for the International UFO Reporter. Schmitt graduated from MATC with a degree in commercial art and graduated cum laude from Concordia University with a degree in liberal arts. He is currently taking graduate courses in criminal justice, and he also has a very, very fine hair salon. More on that in just a bit. He and Tom Carey, his partner of 18 years, have already outlined their next writing collaboration on the Roswell Incident of 1947. He's the author of hundreds of articles about UFOs, as well as the co-author of 5 best-selling books: The UFO Crash at Roswell, The Truth About the UFO Crash at Roswell, Witness to Roswell Revised Edition, and Inside the Real Area 51, The Secret History of Wright Patterson. His new book is The Coverup at Roswell. I'm holding it here for the cameras for everybody. Without Tom Carey. Let's ask Don about that one. Hey, Don. Good evening, my friend.
Had to bring up the hair.
Yeah, well, I had to. When I got the book and I was so excited, you and I went back and forth. I needed the book, right? I needed the book, and I got the book, and there's no Tom Carey. So, real quick, can you address that? What happened?
Well,
you guys didn't get divorced or anything, did you?
No, not at all. In fact, we're working on another book as we speak. But when the proposal was made to our editor for doing another book, and especially leading up to the 70th anniversary, the time allowed was a little beyond the pale as far as Tom, and he just didn't feel we could, do it justice. And I immediately stepped in and says, well, then I'll do it by myself. And the main reason, my dad had just passed away.
Right.
And I thought, damn it, I'll do it for my dad.
Right. So
I'm not going to ask him to help me do it, but just to keep me, focused and keep me awake late at night. And keep my wife understanding that 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm still in my office, typing away.
Right.
And I met my deadline, and there it is.
Well, I had commented to you, and I meant it as a compliment. But I didn't realize about the time constraints, but my comment to you was that this reads better to me than some of your previous stuff, in that it just gets to the point. There's no fluff here.
Yes. And I take that as a compliment. And so often, the very art of co-authoring a book, it can become at times repetitious, you tend to overlap in detail that there's no need. If its impact is forceful enough, you don't need to repeat something. And here, there's the constant flow of information, and so I really relished, the opportunity to actually sit down and put this together. And I even had my editor compliment me immediately once it was submitted, and said that they pretty much, agreed with what you just said, Jimmy, that they felt it was one of the better books.
Yeah,
that they've received. So.
Right. I like to get to the point, right, and that's exactly what the book does, and it doesn't stop, right? It's just douche, douche, douche. Now we'll be discussing the book all night, but we lost a dear friend in Jim Mars last night. And the three of us, you, myself, and Jim, have hung out a few times. Mm-hmm. And we can talk about that, but that's not the point. The point is he's gone, right? And it's just kind of hit all of us. But when you got the news today, and unfortunately it was me that did that, and, I thought that you knew.
Well, I knew he was ailing, and
right.
I had sent him a number of get well wishes, and always the response that I'm going to beat this. That I'm not as close to death's door as some people would wish me to be, or would believe I was. But that he just I never gave it another thought. That. We'd be, sitting here this evening talking about, his passing.
Yeah, it's crazy. What and his friendship and his research. How did it impact you?
Well, I always appreciate the fact that, for example, when he penned his best-selling book, Alien Agenda, that he did a whole section on Roswell. And he sourced and attributed the whole thing to Kevin Randall, my partner at that time, and myself. So unlike so many others that they use your material, they claim it as their own, they don't attribute it to its source of origin, and Jim was a consummate professional in that regard. That he wasn't afraid to share the glory, so to speak, and he was able to, point out that we were the very source of the information that he contained in his book, and we were flattered by the fact that, he selected our material to include in his book, and I don't think most of your listeners are aware of the fact that Jim started out as a cub reporter with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
That's right.
Down, in the Fort Worth, Dallas area. And that specific newspaper was very much involved with the weather balloon cover story regarding Roswell. The photographs that, that we've all seen of the famous weather balloon and in General Ramey's office, and Major Jesse Marcel, the intel officer from Roswell, posing with the balloon with the radar reflector kite on the floor. Well, 4 of those pictures were taken by James B. Johnson from that very newspaper. So, they were, hot on the trail, hoping to, break the story that Roswell was essentially shut out from, because they shifted all attention from Roswell over to Fort Worth. And for Jim to, years later, start working at that very paper. And he immediately contacted us that, I'm talking to these senior reporters, and they're telling me that, they were around back then, and the balloon story was a big cover-up. It was nonsense. It had nothing to do with the reality of the case. And Jim helped us try to find a mortician who we had a lead from a military source from Roswell, who happened to be, waiting on the tarmac when this crate came in on July 9th from Roswell, and Jim helped us with that link to the whole story. But then, more importantly, the fact that he was talking to these reporters, and they were encouraging him to encourage us that no, the balloon was not the answer. It was not the truth. And again, coming from someone of Jim Marrs, reputation,
right?
Only fired us up all the more that if it was good enough for Jim, then there must be something to it.
And if Jim gets on your trail, and I've said this to him many times. I don't want you investigating me, right? It's not going to end well, right? And so he's not going to stop. He smelled something funky with Roswell, and he knew. And his reputation as a writer and a journalist, his PI background, right? He had a security clearance. He knew how to sniff something out, and he went straight after it, didn't he?
He was a bulldog, and he didn't take any guff from anybody. And where so many others would have immediately become paranoid and backed down because, my God, I'm really pushing City Hall. I'm, pointing the finger right at them and saying, you lie. You SOBs, you are not telling us the truth about this or that. And, many a stronger man would have, couched, such accusations and cries of corruption long before Jim ever backed down. And the point is that even up till the very end, in the face of his illness, he was still not backing down. He was still looking forward to the next war, the next battle, so to speak. I think people also lose sight of that when it came to JFK. We look to him as one of the authorities, but we lose sight of the fact that it's a crazy thought. But that film, Oliver Stone, all of that was based on Jim Marrs. And Crossfire, his book. Yes.
Yeah. And we kind of lose sight of his research and his influence because JFK went from, and I'm talking about the film, it took that our little conspiracy bubble. Yeah, Jim was a New York Times bestseller, but he was still part of this little community of ours, right? And JFK, the film with Oliver Stone, blew that whole thing, our little community, worldwide. And it made it a worldwide topic to talk about. But that was because of Jim Marrs. We cannot lose sight
of Jim Marrs.
100%.
I could not agree more.
And we lose sight of that. It's because he's so close, But that guy rocked the world.
And Jim, for the thousands, and there are literally thousands of books on the Kennedy assassination. Jim's was the first book, and then in having discussions with him afterwards, when you look at the Zapruder film, and you see all the people across the street who also had cameras. But everyone was always focused on Abraham Zapruder's, film of that fatal headshot. Well, what about all those other people who are filming it from the other side of the street? And Jim was the first one to actually be on the FBI, be on the Warren Commission, went and tracked all those people down, talked to every one of them, and found out how one after the other, their cameras were confiscated. That's the authorities immediately ran up to each and every one of them and snatched the cameras out of their hands. But then Jim still was able to interview them, and, well, what did you see? What did you see from your vantage point? And the consistency, one after another, and that's, again, what a great journalist, a great reporter used to do. They may not do it any longer, and they certainly don't do it within the field of UFOs, because now it's just a matter of just sitting at your computer night after night and trying to solve the whole mystery, as opposed to actually being out in the trenches and out in the field and talking to the people who were there firsthand, who witnessed, who saw, who handled things. And, it's just another example of where we've lost someone who was shining the light on how it's to be done, how we should be all out there, digging up the story, because it's there. It's there for all of us to see. We just have to be willing and brave enough to look at it, to stare it down and say, now I get it. Now I see the truth.
And I'll tell you something else. The thing about Jim, and then we can move on or not. It doesn't matter. But the one thing about that guy was he was the complete package. And I mean it like this. He had the fedora, right? He had the beard. He had the glasses. He had the face. He had the voice. He had the intelligence. He had the ability to communicate. He had the ability to write. He made his world, his brain, legible and approachable. He could command an audience. He looked non-offensive. You know what I mean? He had that. He was the complete package. That's a rare thing.
That's a rare thing, and as it could be said of certain people in the past, they would, like Johnny Carson would talk about, like Richard Burton, that he could read the phone book,
right,
and draw an audience,
right.
And I think we both would agree. I think Jim Mars could have read most anything, and he would have commanded an audience.
Oh man, I'm gonna miss that guy. Miss him already.
Oh, yeah. I'm bummed out. Yeah, really.
Complete drag. But and I do mean this. If he's probably listening right now. He probably is. But if he had the ability to reach out and slap you and I right now for being bummed out, he would. He would haul off and backslap us because. He would not. He wouldn't. He would swear like a sailor, and and tell us to grow up, and life goes on. And you know what? This is the other thing. Right now, dude he's on the other side, figuring it all out.
Yeah, getting all the answers. Yeah, and like Kevin Randall said on his blog this evening, wouldn't we love to see what he's writing now?
Oh, man. Yeah, exactly. All right. I'm wiping the tears from my eyes. I got a Dos Equis, by the way, here. Jim's favorite beer. I'm by the end of the
That is right. Yes.
Yeah, by the end of the show, I should be drunk. So.
Well, I'll carry on for both of us.
Okay. All right. So, it just came out in Twitter right now, or no, it was in one of the chat rooms. They wanted me to ask you if you're wearing a shirt and tie right now. I'm not kidding. This isn't coming from me, Don. This is actually in the chat room. That's how much this audience loves you. By the way, they pay attention, don't they?
Well, yes, I do appreciate that. In fact, Dr. Hynek used to always encourage us to dress our best, at least in public, because he would always, comment, we walk on eggshells as it is, so first impression is everything. And I've tested often that if you go to a complaint department, and if you look like you've just crawled out from underneath a car, changing the oil or something, they'll barely give you the time of day. But if you look like you might be an attorney, walking in a suit and tie, you get their attention. So, no, of course not, I'm not. But I'm not like Stan Friedman doing a late-night show. I remember one time with George Norrie, and he commented because it was like 6 in the morning, and he commented that he was doing the show in his pajamas. So
I don't need that visual. Yeah, right?
No, I agree.
I don't need that visual. I remember you and I at Contact, I think it was either last year or the year before, Stanton and you were both wearing shirt and ties out there signing.
And Travis Walton.
And Travis Walton. Right. You guys were all in shirts and ties. And I'm the young guy in the room, and I was dying. And I'm looking at you guys. Nobody's breaking a sweat. And Stanton, who is sitting next to me, and I'm looking, I'm like, I have no right to complain. Look at my man right here. Shirt and tie, business attire, getting it done. Okay, so the 70th anniversary is just passed us with Roswell. And It is, for me, I don't think it's ever going to go away. I don't know if we're ever going to, get some kind of official government recognition of what's going on. If we do, it'll be an accident, or they'll be forced into it as opposed to, a volunteer situation. But it has been covered up now for 70 years. Why?
And I would defy any of the skeptics to come up with another example of something that was explained away. Now, just think of this. I mean, it's been, they've come out with 4 official explanations for the same event.
Right.
And last time in May of 1997, when the Pentagon came out with their 4th explanation, and the Pentagon spokesperson was asked by a reporter in the room, well, what if the public doesn't accept this one? And his response was, well, then I guess we'll be back in another few years offering another one.
Right.
And so to them, it's simply just running out the clock, just waiting until that final witness is passed on. We talk about final witnesses. We lost Jesse Marcel Jr. just 3 years ago. And as of this past weekend, we just lost Frankie Rowe.
Yes, Frankie.
Who
Frankie
was a child at the time.
Right.
And, another firsthand to actually handling the wreckage, handling the material from this craft of unknown origin. And you can just imagine the powers that be, in some deep, dark cellar, beneath Wright Patterson or even the Pentagon, just sliding their hands together, just a few more, and the last one will be gone. Cover-up complete.
Well, they almost had it. They almost, pulled that off. You and I were talking earlier today, and I think one of the most remarkable instances that we can have of Roswell being successfully covered up is Long John Nebel. And Long John Nebel, his show absolutely 100% did everything it could to have on guest and evidence to bring forth all of this and get answers. I mean, talk about a pit bull, right? That was Long John Nebel.
Absolutely.
He didn't stop, and he did it for a couple of decades. Now, throughout every broadcast, I've listened to every single, well, not every single, but pretty close, maybe 1,000 broadcasts. Not once was Roswell ever mentioned on his show. And he had everybody talking about every great case constantly for 5 hours a night out of New York City. No Roswell. That's a pretty successful cover-up.
Exactly. And it would also demonstrate that for all of the threats, both to the military and to the civilians involved, that they took them very seriously. The other point that could be made, Jimmy, is the fact that nobody ever stepped forward and reiterated the balloon explanation. Nobody ever, 10, 20, 25 years thereafter, until Major Jesse Marcel, the intel officer from the Roswell Army Airfield, finally broke his oath of secrecy 30 years after, and, he was dying of emphysema at the time, and, what do I have to lose at this point? So I'm going to tell the world what really happened. But there was nobody to contradict him, and there was nobody to reiterate that balloon explanation during all that time. So you're absolutely correct that Long John Nebel, and as far as all of the guests, no one mentioned anything about Roswell, but the point also being that nobody ever repeated anything in support of what the government had claimed regarding the incident during all that time.
Well, yeah, and
it disappeared. It disappeared. It was like it never happened.
And for Kenneth Arnold, and we were talking about this earlier today, but this point really needs to be driven home. Kevin Arnold and everything that was going on in July of 1947, you had the Rhodes photographs that came out of Phoenix, right? That happened.
William Rhodes,
right? You had the Rhodes photographs. Of course, you had Maury Island, you had Kenneth Arnold, and you had Roswell. This was front page news, big time stuff that was being, So Kenneth Arnold was aware of Roswell. Of course he was, but he never brought it up again. It was covered up so quickly that it was like erased from his mind, and he was a guest on Nebel's show, dozens of times. He was he's a featured guest over there, and he never brought it up. It freaks me out when somebody says, "How successful can they be with a cover-up?" I'm giving you one right now. It was not mentioned.
Absolutely. And as we were talking earlier today, and my comment about the government, the military walking on water post-World War II, and they took a big chance by first putting out that press release on Tuesday, July 8th, where they actually announced they had captured a flying disc, and realizing that it was all staged, that within the next few hours, and then you would watch the slow evolution from the flying disc into a balloon and a radar reflector kite, and you transfer all the attention from Roswell over to Fort Worth, and General Ramey allows the reporter, James Bond Johnson, to come in and take the pictures of the balloon, and it makes the front page headlines the very next morning, and within a blink, it's all over. From a flying disc to a balloon, all within a span of one day. And it stuck. The press accepted it hook, line, and sinker, and the people, who really didn't have any answers, who just, were relieved to hear that we weren't being invaded, that it was just 9 years post War of the Worlds, the Orson Welles broadcast from, just 9 years before. And so life went on. And yet at the Pentagon, the phenomenon was still there. And they had the physical wreckage, they had physical proof, but they had absolutely no answers. And I believe, and as you've heard me say before, Jimmy, I believe that after now 70 years, that it still remains a cover-up of ignorance, that they still don't have any answers. They still don't know from where, from why, or from who. So what do they disclose? Well, we have proof, but we have no answers. Well, what elected official is going to do that and get reelected?
Well, the difference between then and now, which is transparent today, we get it. But then they trusted the government. They trusted the military. And that came first. We came off of World War II, where it was spy versus spy, double, triple agents, disinfo, briefcases full of fake documents being dropped everywhere. And it was just, it's the way that it ran, and everything, you had to be secret. There were posters plastered everywhere. Keep your mouth shut, right? And
exactly. People who talk don't know, and people who know don't talk, right?
And so was that probably the main influence there, that there, especially in the town of Roswell, which was a military city, right? It was
the headquarters of the first atomic bomb wing back in 1947. Even the two B-29s, the Enola Gay and Boxcar, which had ended World War II, dropped the two bombs on Japan. They were hangared at Roswell after the war. Every personnel, everyone on that base, I don't care if you just, swept the broom, you had a top security clearance on that base back in 1947. And the irony that they would be involved with something of this magnitude just 2 years after that, deployment of this new weapon that we unleashed, that we had no idea, what power it would eventually, arise to. And yet they had to deal with something potentially off the planet, all within that short period of time. And that after now 70 years, that we're still being asked to believe that the very personnel who were in charge of the atomic bomb could not tell the difference as far as a weather balloon of off-the-shelf material that a 5-year-old child would have recognized. I often say it's the one time and only time in history that a weather balloon was misidentified as a flying saucer.
Let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Don Schmitt. We're discussing his new book, Coverup at Roswell. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. We're on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. More with Don right after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. Life-changing. The real oil. CBD is truly ancient life oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go Beckley Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product. What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring two Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The two full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129 and use the promo code JCRTWS and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tappy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Don Schmitt. We're talking about his new book, Coverup at Roswell. You can get it now. It's available on Amazon. I have it here. I've been reading it. It's a good read. It's a good read. And Don, what I wanted to, as I read the book, there's one thing that kept coming back to me. And I keep bringing up Long John Nebel, but there's you have Donald Kehoe, or you have McDonald. You had other researchers throughout that era that also, it was like there was a lack of the ability to go and dig up some old newspapers or try to figure out, or why weren't they able to do it? And the first thing I think of is, well, it seems like the public were silenced first. Is that the method of the operation? Is there a step or did they silence the military first and police enforcement? How does that work? Don? Oh,
we're here.
Don. Don't give me a heart attack like that. Did you hear the question?
About police?
No.
Repeat it, please.
Yeah, the question, as I read the book, it kept coming back to me why, not only Neville or Kenneth Arnold, but like Donald Kehoe or James McDonald or other guys that were out there in that era really overturning stuff. And I don't know why there was the lack of the ability to go and find members of the public to speak about it, dig up old newspaper articles and find out about Roswell. It wasn't done. And it just seems to me like there was a silencing of the public because they couldn't get any witnesses. And so what happened first? Was it the military? Was it the police department were worked on first? Did they silence the public first? Do they have a method to this?
Well, they went after the press first, and that was clearly their game plan. As just in researching a lot of the newspaper accounts, and some of the press back at Roswell after the balloon explanation at Fort Worth, they were still questioning if there was something still afoot, something else was still going on, because why were we cut out? Why did they shift all the attention from here where it happened over into Texas, over in the Dallas-Fort Worth area? And so they felt a little snubbed in that regard, but then things also quickly quieted down there as well. The base had been on lockdown, and then where there had been established such a wonderful rapport between the base personnel, there were about 7,000 people on the base at that time, and the local inhabitants, the local people in town. And what was sad is we were to talk to both sides. More and more they described to us that there was such a wall, a barrier that arose immediately after the incident, as though neither side trusted the other any longer. And neither side had the answers, though. That's the whole point. So who was creating that, that obstruction, creating as far as that tension between what had originally been such a happy marriage?
Right.
And you realize that one of the things that became quite evident that they, first of all, the ridicule factor had already been established. That General Ramey, for example, within a few days after the balloon press conference, he was on an El Paso radio station, and he was asked about, that explains Roswell, but then what about all the other states? Haven't, every other state throughout the country also had these flying disc reports, to which Ramey agrees, yes, that is true, except for Kansas, which is a dry state. So for the first time, it's suggested that only people who over-imbibe, who drink, even have such experiences. And the topic then becomes more and more taboo. And as a result, sightings have dropped off, as far as the reports have dropped off after Roswell drastically. If you compile all the reports that have come in for those 2 weeks leading up to Roswell, it's over 100 a day. And after the balloon explanation, they drop off to practically nothing, because now people are led to believe that, you're wasting our time. We're not investigating anything. Roswell was just a big misidentification. Nothing to see here, folks. You can all go home.
Well, why?
And they did.
And we were seconds away, literally, from this thing going in the other direction.
Absolutely, Jimmy. Yes. Excellent point.
And I don't know why we didn't have one dude there like Jim Mars, right? That was hey, there's something funny here. See, you guys just did a press release yesterday, and now you say it's nothing. Something. We didn't have that guy, and it blows my mind that the press and the public were willing to just buy the narrative so quickly.
They were, and as we described earlier, I mean, it's difficult by today's standards. I mean, clearly the level of distrust for the government and for government, as far as official corruption and that type of thing, we've all grown up with it. But back then, it didn't exist in the minds of the people. They again felt that if this was an official pronouncement on the part of the government, that's good enough for us. And we had an example of Artesia, which is just south of Roswell, about a half hour away. And we were tipped off by a reporter who eventually would become the editor of the very newspaper. And the story was that around 1950, 3 years after, he was assigned to go up to Roswell to follow up on all these stories and all these rumors about the alleged bodies that were recovered. Well, that in the face of the standing balloon story. And when we tracked him down and we tried to get him to talk to us, boy, did we have a door slammed in our face. And to us, it was as though he had the very same experience back in 1950, that for whatever reason, because there was obviously no story, nothing that we checked out that any such story was ever written on his part, or anybody else at the paper. But nonetheless, he treated us as though, don't go there, I'm not going there, and as though it, again, was a off-limits subject, that you're not going to touch this story. And so there may have been some Jim Mars back then. There may have been others that, tried to reopen the case, so to speak. But I think they were quickly reminded, just as the very witnesses involved, that you will not go there, and if you do, you will, have hell to pay for it.
Let's fast forward. I want to jump to Bill Moore, and the reason why I want to jump to Bill Moore so quickly is I want to hear from you because A, I trust you. B, you were there, and so how did it actually happen? How did this thing, I know the Jesse Marcel's side of things, and we know the public side of this, but I want to hear from Don. How did this thing blow open in 79, 80?
Well, it was for the very fact, as we've been describing, that Jess Marcel, and he was a ham radio operator at that time, and he had also been diagnosed with terminal emphysema. And he was the patsy. He was the original fall guy. He was ordered to pose with the substituted weather balloon, in the stark reality of knowing that it was the cover story, that it was not what he had held in his very hands, what he came back from the very crash sites and essentially set the whole story in motion. And at the time, he was promised, just be a good soldier, Jess, in 5 years, it's all going to come out. 10 years, it's all going to come out. We're going to have to get a handle on it and figure out what's going on, and you're going to be a hero. And 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, and he's now realizing that his days are numbered, and he finally realizes it's not going to come out. They're not going to disclose the reality of what he firsthand knew to be the truth. And so he breaks his silence. And Stan Friedman is tipped off by a reporter down in Houma, Louisiana, who was aware of, this gentleman, this former military lieutenant colonel, who was talking about actually handling pieces of a genuine flying saucer. And Stan would talk to Marcel, and at the time, Stan was aware that Bill Moore had also talked to another witness who supposedly was involved with the same incident. And they pulled their information and they realized that there's a story here, and what especially, provided, and what has made Roswell the linchpin. And I call it the granddaddy of all UFO cases because it's the one and only time that the United States military actually put out a press release that they had captured one, that they actually got their hands on one. And they named names. And so it was just a matter of Moore and Friedman then gathering all those names and tracking them down. And they were all still alive back then. And they were all, telling the same story. They were saying that it was the first press account, the first press release, which was the genuine story.
Right.
And they realized that they had a tiger by the tail. They realized that, my God, if this is true, we finally, have, the Holy Grail of all the UFO cases.
So
and much to their credit, they took off with it.
So did Bill and Stanton? I envision them driving right down to the Roswell Daily Record, walking in the front door right there, which is it's right there in Roswell.
Still there,
and going in and asking about this story. Were they able to just put their hands on original newspapers and because you're right, that original article had everything in it. It was the Hout press release. It was word for word, names were named, locations, who, what, where, and when was right there. Is that what they did? I can't imagine being able to do that. Oh man, what an extraordinary chain of events. Because it was still 1980, and you bring up a good point. 1980. Okay, that's 1947. So that means if somebody's 20, 21 years old in the Army back then, they're only 50, 51, 52 years old. Everybody's still kids at this point.
Exactly. Just about everybody is still around. I mean, we did lose many of the principal witnesses before, like the very rancher Mac Brazo and the base commander, Colonel William Blanchard, and I could name probably a dozen others who had passed away in the 60s and 70s leading up to the incident. But the bulk, the heart, the meat of the story, everybody was still there. Everybody was still around. And so Moore had co-authored the book Philadelphia Experiment with Charles Berlitz, the famous linguist. And the publisher Dunlop decided that instead of a book co-authored by Moore and Friedman, that once again would do Moore and Berlitz. So in 1980, they came out with Roswell Incident, which presented the testimony of 92 witnesses, as I recall, and most of them never, known of heretofore up to that point. And as a result, it created, and as Moore himself would describe, that it was a hodgepodge, that they still had a lot of the peripheral storylines, information, rumors, legends, that type of thing, and they tried to encompass it into one scenario, one event, and they failed. They were unable to do that, but nonetheless, they still, they resurrected the very story, and as a result, here we are, 70 years later, and I honestly would give all of them full credit for reopening what I believe is the consummate, the granddaddy of all UFO cases, and that being Roswell.
Well, and this is where it gets interesting. We setting it all up. Now we have the we have the game in front of us. Here's the game. But when we're talking about a cover-up and a cover-up at Roswell, suddenly you go from no witnesses, no nobody talking about it. Still, the cone of silence is over the town of Roswell, to everybody having a story here and witnesses coming forward. And now you have the evidence of a huge cover-up. And everybody can't be making up the same story, can they?
No. That is the amazing thing that to this day still boggles my mind. And as we both and all your listeners would know that whether it would be in law enforcement or even something such as an insurance adjuster, 10 people witness an event, you have 10 different versions.
Mm-hmm.
And the amazing thing about Roswell is that they're all providing individual pieces of the same mosaic, the same puzzle. No one is saying, no, I was on that flight, you were not, or I was on the ground picking up the wreckage, or I guarded the hangar and I never saw you, that type of thing, where we were initially, talking to witnesses who would then finger and recall and remember, well, I believe so-and-so was, also part of that crew, or also, down at the other end guarding this area or that area, and then we would track them down, and then they would fill in that vantage points, as far as information. And they're all reading, Jimmy, from the same script, and a script that is either the biggest hoax of all time or it's one of the biggest events of all time. It comes down to, it's just that simple.
Now, as time started to move along, I want to stay back at this original point, but as time started to move along here, Bill Moore started to get deeper and deeper into the possibility of disinformation being fed to him, as we all know. Do you think at any point through that era in the 80s, as Roswell started to really, really take off, you're involved, you've got Randall involved, everybody is converging now on Roswell. And then you have Aztec and you have Corona comes into play. Everything is starting to show itself. Do you think any of that at this point, looking back, do you think part of that cover-up may have been some disinformation on Bill Moore's part?
Well, in keeping in mind, too, that the Moore and Friedman collaboration was 10 years before we even became involved.
Right.
I was so, disinterested, such a skeptic on Roswell leading up to even our very first trip in February of 1989, so even 10 years after their initial involvement. I just couldn't believe something of that magnitude could be kept a secret for all that time. Little did I know. But nonetheless, I had never read the book, Roswell Incident, and Kevin Randall at that time. We were both total novices on the case. We were, as far as like a sponge going down to New Mexico for the first time, just absorbing all that information, all that firsthand testimony, and going, my God, what if we're wrong? Mm-hmm. What if, we are making, a major mistake of our lives by not considering the possibility that what if this is true?
Right.
And we couldn't get back down to New Mexico quick enough. And we've often commented in the past that Bill Moore could have had all of this, that all he would have needed to do is continue as far as on this rapid course of just tracking down every surviving witness and compiling all the data, and there would have been such a minutia as far as such a snowball effect of just this wealth of eyewitness testimony that there would have been no stopping it. And whether he became distracted, whether he fell to disinformation, whether he even became a disinformation agent himself, that he became a willing participant, so to speak, it was a total distraction, a total diversion. It left a void. And that's when I approached Stan Friedman, and I asked him, do you feel that you've tracked down all the remaining witnesses? And I was pleasantly surprised in the fall of 1908 when Stan said to me, no, Don, I'm sure there's still hundreds of witnesses still out there. And that's all I needed to hear.
Right.
And I made my recommendation to the CUFO, Center for UFO Studies, that as the Director of Special Investigations at that time, that I wanted to make this a principal target. And I selected Kevin Randall as an outside investigator. Kevin was not with CUFOS at that time, and he also was a skeptic. And we both thought we'd go down to New Mexico and wrap this up in a weekend, that we'd come away with something as prosaic as the weather balloon or something just as conventional.
And here you are in 2017.
Yes.
Oh, man.
And I, for one, being able to say that I was totally wrong. But just as Dr. Hynek, my predecessor as far as at CUFOS, where he too was, the chief debunker, the chief skeptic for the Air Force for 19 years. And when you realize you're going in the wrong direction, and that at a certain point you just can't, continue to call all these people liars.
Right.
That you realize that it's no different than we can disagree about elements of the Alamo or Little Bighorn or any incident in history. We can have, reasonable debate and argument, but it doesn't disavow, it doesn't deny that the event still happened. And that's where the skeptics regarding Roswell, they're still trying to paint this as a non-event. Well, it doesn't acknowledge the fact that, they still put out the damn press release. They still said something crashed, something was recovered. And just because you don't like what they initially claimed doesn't mean you can just wash away the testimony of hundreds of witnesses and say they're all lying. Doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry.
I remember you and I talking, I think it was probably about 4 years ago, and I had said to you then, we're dangerously close, we're weeks or months away from, that's it, right? That it's a morose statement, but there's going to be nobody left alive.
Yes.
Now, here we are 4 years later, 4 years past even that statement then, as strong as it was. And if we look at the military personnel back then, and we'll pick this up after the break, but, let's say somebody's a private or, 20, 21, 22, 23 years old. Well, that's going to make them 90 today, yes. 95. Is there anybody left from the military alive today? I mean,
yes.
From Roswell?
Yes.
How many?
And they are 90 years old.
They have to be. even if they were 18, they're 90 today. Yes.
And the skeptics would say that, it's because of their advanced age that you can't trust them at all. You can't trust their testimony, that it's worth nothing. Well, but these people have been talking for the past 20 years since they were 70. So the main point being that their testimony remains consistent, that they haven't altered it. And the main point, they haven't backed down. They haven't said, now that, my days are numbered, let me tell you the truth. I was lying all this time. I made it all up. I was never even involved. No, they, just as Jess Marcel, to their very dying day, they swore that it all happened, that it was true.
Let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, the one and only Don Schmitt. And he does have a fine line of hair care products. Don, I had to say it. Don Schmitt is our guest. His new book is The Coverup at Roswell. More with Don right after this short break. This is Fade to Black.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Beckley Tappy.
Hi, I'm Matt Ray for U.S. Gold Bureau. I cover the market daily. No matter how strong it gets or what long-term predictions say, you can count on one thing as certain. There will be another crash. It will affect your assets. And when it happens, wouldn't you rather be 2 weeks or even 2 months ahead of the curve? Well, Wall Street insiders have been quietly converting their assets into gold for the last few years. Now it's your turn. Buying gold and silver is easier than buying stocks with the U.S. Gold Bureau's Investor Guide. It's free, and you learn how to buy precious metals in or out of an IRA or 401k retirement plan. Your investment shipped directly to your home and is 100% insured and guaranteed. You control your investments and shelter them against the stock market, politics, and unknown threats. Act while your dollar is still worth something. Call U.S. Gold Bureau, 800-885-GOLD. U.S. Gold Bureau, 800-885-GOLD, 800-885-GOLD. Call today.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRAradio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Don Schmitt, discussing his new book, Coverup at Roswell. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Simple enough. Join in, hashtag F2B on Twitter. It's on fire tonight, as it should be. Now, Don, I want everybody to read the book, but I want to discuss your chapter, Searching for the Holy Grail. And Tech Sergeant Stephen Akins and that story. Pretty incredible chapter. Tell us about that.
Well, Akins was stationed at Cannon Air Force Base in Clovis, New Mexico, northeast of Roswell. And he described in the late 1970s that he was ordered to check a car out of the motor pool, that he'd be taking a drive off the base. And there were two high-ranking officers. One was a full-bird colonel who his impression was they came in from Washington. And he was to drive them to an undisclosed location, and they went via Roswell, as though, which, as it turns out, was kind of a long way. They made a circle. But the point being that they drove to the southwest into Roswell. They grabbed some lunch there, according to Akins, and then they headed out into the desert. And they arrived. The officers kept looking at maps between the two of them, and they didn't really say anything to him at all. It was basically just drive the car and keep your mouth shut. And they arrived at this high desert, this open range, this area. And they got out, they walked around for a bit, and they finally got back into the vehicle. And at that point, Akins finally said, what's this all about? What's this site? What's important about this site? And it was at that point that the colonel, sitting next to him in the front seat, made the comment that this is where allegedly, a flying saucer crashed back in the 40s. And Akins really, had no prior knowledge of Roswell or anything of that sort. But once they arrived back at the base, he was told by the same colonel, now, we didn't go anywhere. You didn't see anything. You didn't hear anything. It was a non-event. And, you'd be best to keep your mouth shut. So this was 30 years after the incident. And then we have other incidents of where the ranch owner and his hired hands have caught Air Force personnel out at the site over the next 10 years up until the late 1980s, still nosing around out there. It's open range, it's high desert. There's not so much as even a landmark out there. And what are they still looking for? And I hardly believe they're looking for pieces of a weather balloon. It's as though they're either curious as to coming across the file and, they want to go, check it out themselves, or they're still inspecting. They're still making sure that everything remains co-presented after all this time.
One of the amazing things about Roswell and New Mexico, and I'm talking about the geography, unless you've been there, you don't really get it. It is wide open, and there is nothing there. Oh, I got to can I tell you a story? I got to tell you a Roswell story. Okay, you'll appreciate everything I'm about to say to you. Rita and I, we arrive in Albuquerque at night, and we take off, and we're driving down to Roswell. And as we get on the main freeway there out of Albuquerque, and we start to head south, and we cut through the last, we pass, the last gas station or McDonald's or whatever, and we pull into the desert. It's at night. It's 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, closing in on midnight, and it's black. And when I say
it is black,
it's black, and I have to express to everybody, to your left and to your right, there are no houses, there are no radio towers off in the distance with lights on it. And nothing that indicates life anywhere. It is black. There's no lights on the freeway. There's nothing. It's black, right? And there's nothing there. It's like a David Lynch film, right? There's nothing there but our headlights on the freeway, right? Okay. So we got this big bad car, this rental, and we're cruising, and my speed is going faster and faster. I'm the only car. There's no cars passing us in the other way, right? We're alone. And I'm creeping up, and I'm going faster and faster. And I kind of look down. I'm doing 100 miles an hour, but it's
easily,
easily, because it's flat and straight, and there's just nothing there, And Rita and I are laughing, ha ha ha! It's like a David Lynch film. This is great, and we're 100, 105, 110, just having a good time. Got the stereo cranked up, and at that moment, Don, on everything that I love, this is what happens. In our lane in front of us is a semi-truck tire.
Yes.
And we're doing 115 miles an hour. And it's lying in the middle of, now I see it for all of 1 second because there's no lights. There's nothing there, right? It's just the headlights.
Right.
And I at 100 miles an hour, 110, I run over it. Now, how we didn't roll over 50 times and end up in the desert, never to be seen or found again because there's nothing there, is beyond me. And we launch up in the air, land back down in the freeway, and look at each other, and have a heart attack. And it was like a David Lynch film. It all played out. So anyway, Yeah, exactly. So we drive the hour into Roswell doing the double nickel now. I'm doing 55 miles an hour. The car's all...
yes. Now you're with the toothpicks holding your eyes open. You know.
The car's all broken into pieces. And we somehow get it into Roswell. We go to the Roswell Museum, and I'm talking to one of the guys there that works there. And I said, hey, man, I need to see a mechanic. And he goes, I got a guy, man, right here. He's my guy. He's right across the street. Just drive over. His name's whatever, Mario, and go check him out. He's cool. So we drive over. This is how cool Roswell is. We pull in, and I tell the guy, we're in from out of town. We're here for the festival. He goes, oh, okay, all right. Puts it up on the lift, and puts Band-Aids on everything, and lowers the car down. And he goes, there you go. And I said, how much? And he goes, no, man, it's on the house. I said, what?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, man, and I flipped
Wouldn't
out.
happen anywhere else.
No. And I flipped the guy, $40 or something. I said, buy everybody lunch here. Come on, And we left. I thought, how this town is wonderful. I mean, we went through a very bad experience, and Rita and I learned our lesson that night. And it's all about the speed limit after that. But so anyway, back to the story.
But they could have taken advantage of you. And it's a primary example. And we've often heard how, a handshake is your word in New Mexico. That when, these people tell you something, you better take it as it stands, because I'm not going to repeat it, because you're not going to insult me by even suggesting for a moment that I'm not telling you the truth.
That's right. And the people of Roswell, it was just an amazing experience. The calling it the small town atmosphere is not fair. It's just not. It's not right. But just a great, great town. So then, as we leave Roswell 4 or 5 days later, and we split, and we're going back to Albuquerque. Now we're driving in the daytime, and we're looking now to the left and to the right, and there is truly nothing there. There's nothing. There is nothing there. So if you are going to cover something up, you have the perfect opportunity. That's why the missile testing is done there. That's why all the secret stuff is going on there. That's why you have Alamogordo and you have Sandia Labs, right? You have all the secrecy going on because there's simply nothing there. And if you're going to cover something up, I can see now how the entire thing was pulled off. I can totally see it. You're not going to go out there and investigate. You can't. It's too wide open. It's too huge.
Right.
You clamp
and
it down.
You can't stumble upon the site on your own.
You can't. It's huge.
You're not going to find it. My own partner, Tom Carey, could not find his way out there today, and he's been out there 24 times.
Right.
For all of these authors and researchers that, provide us with the theories of the month, as we call them, they've never been out there, or they've been out there and they don't grasp the wide openness that you yourself witnessed. We've been over the area in small planes and helicopters. And one thing becomes immediately evident is that once you are airborne, you can see for 100 miles. And the very thought that, it was something we were testing, or it was something, that went awry, something that went off course, it was a mogul balloon, and they just never were able to find it. I'm sorry, sports fans, they would have found it before the rancher even did, because, again, it's totally unobscured. It's high desert. It's wide open range. And the point being, as we even, emphasized in the movie Roswell, which was based on our first book, nothing was missing. And if we weren't looking for anything, it's because we weren't missing anything. And if it wasn't ours, then it was somebody else's.
Now, what about when we're talking about cover-ups? We have 2 or 3, maybe more sites out there where there is evidence, and some of it pretty strong today. There's, a lot of stuff has been coming forward of other crash sites out there that were also covered up. In its totality, what do you think was going on there? Was it interference with our radar? Was it bad weather? Were they struck by lightning? Did they get shot down? What do you think was going on?
Those are all theories, but the one and the only thing that we're able to substantiate, and it was from the very weather records at the time, that there was indeed a severe lightning storm the night in question throughout that region. And that was the same day that Mr. and Mrs. Daniel Wilmot of Roswell, from their porch, about 9:30 that evening, observed a disk, pass over Roswell at some altitude, moving up towards the northwest in that general vicinity. And then the ranchers would describe between the thunderclaps of the storm that evening what sounded like an explosion. And so it's the next morning that the rancher discovers the huge debris field. And when Major Marcel, who was led out there, once again, they weren't going to find this on their own. They were led out there by the rancher. And the first impression that Jess Marcel had was that this was a mid-air explosion, that by the very pattern of the way the debris had rained across that range in that fan pattern, about 3/4 of a mile long, that it demonstrated that nothing had impacted, that something had actually exploded at some altitude, raining debris down on that site. There was a secondary body site about 2.5 miles from that debris field, and there was a final impact site much closer to Roswell, another 25 miles from there along that same trajectory, that same line. And that's where there was the remains of the capsule, the pod, the cabin, about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, egg-shaped, and that's where the remains of the crew were recovered. And one of the reasons that we kept looking much closer to Roswell was once we learned that the fire department and as well as the sheriff's department were involved, it would have had to have been within their county jurisdiction. And the debris field is in Lincoln County, New Mexico, out of their territory, out of their jurisdiction, whereas the location of the impact site is in Chavez County, which is in Roswell's jurisdiction. So you see how even as investigators that we realized that we had to, again, pull this all together and find the witnesses that could provide us with further substantiation and corroboration of those multiple sites.
Now, what about Corona and Aztec? Real events?
Well, Corona would be the debris field.
Okay.
Corona would be the debris field. And I have the major problem I have with Aztec is the size of the craft, the descriptions, and as far as I understand, all from second, third hand eyewitnesses, unlike Roswell, where we've interviewed over 100 first-hand witnesses. And the Aztec craft, that if this object was 100 feet in diameter, how in God's name do you transport that away from that location? I don't care how many flatbeds you have, 100 feet in diameter. And
well, if it was a weather balloon, if it was a weather balloon, you wad it up in a ball and you throw it in the back seat and you get out of there.
Well, that's right. And whereas Roswell, we don't have anything near that size. As I said, even the remains of the craft, the pod, the capsule at the impact site was about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. And from all accounts, it neatly fit on the flatbed of a lowboy truck. Aztec, I'm very skeptical. Though in all frankness, I also though have to concede, if I accept Roswell, then I have to accept that everything else is possible.
Now, with you have a chapter in the book, and we'll talk more about this after the break, but you have a chapter in the book called the 20 most asked questions about Roswell or something similar to that. And as I got to that, I was like, Don, this is a very smart thing to do, right? It was actually pretty smart. And I was reading through the questions, and these are all the questions that we all have. One of them, and I really want to go into this in depth, is perfect, which is we have all of the folding and unfolding of the mysterious metal, and how you couldn't tear it, you couldn't burn it, it was indestructible, but yet you could wad it up in a ball, throw it on the table, it would unfold and lay flat. We've all heard the reports, but how does material like that shred into a debris field?
Yes, exactly. And quite simply, first of all, we've never described the material as indestructible. Now, we use the term nearly indestructible based on, our earthly terms, so to speak. And the explanation, quite simple, is if you compare our materials today, juxtaposed to 1947, we've made tremendous advances. The polymers, even the materials that we use as far as within aircraft and our automobiles and everything, that we've made tremendous breakthroughs. And we're getting stronger and stronger with lighter and thinner material. Well, anything that's manufactured has a fracture point. If it can be assembled, it can be disassembled. And whatever this wreckage was, its fracture point, its breaking point, just happened to be much higher than ours at the time. And whatever caused it to explode, whatever caused it, whether it was struck by lightning or a internal malfunction, who knows, that it reached that point, that it caused it to fracture. It caused it to break up. Much higher than our own back then, but and it still may be much higher than ours even in 2017. But nonetheless, it reached that fracture point, caused it to break up. Nearly indestructible, not indestructible. No.
Mark just sent this question in from Australia. He says there's testimony that a pilot was given permission to deploy a weapon on the Roswell craft. What's your take on that?
Well, if he possesses such information, I would love to see it. That's a witness that we've had speculation that we shot it down, or as you mentioned earlier, that it was because of the radar facilities at that time. White Sands Proving Grounds had probably the most sophisticated radar tracking system at that time. Roswell, and I mentioned like Cannon in Clovis, New Mexico, even Kirtland up in Albuquerque. They had radar facilities, radar systems that only tracked incoming, not outgoing, where White Sands had both. So it was the most sophisticated at the time, and so it's been suggested that maybe radar brought the object down. If Martin has any information to that extent, I would love to see that, and feel free to provide him with my email information, because I'd like to establish some conversation in that regard.
I wanted to go back really quick before this break. Have you been able to, with all of your research over the years, been able to find a direct reference to either in the public domain or otherwise of a reference to Roswell in a book, in a conversation, before 1980? And I'm referring to like the 1960s or 1950s, where there was a direct, I was there, I did this, but the comment was from the 60s or the 50s.
Well, there were books like Frank Edwards' Flying Saucers, Serious Business, that makes a mention of a crash in New Mexico. Harold Wilkins' book. I can't think of the title offhand. I think it was Attack from Outer Space, something like that. And he makes reference to the alleged crash. There were a few other slight references, and I think most significantly was reporter Lydia Sleppy, who worked for Associated Press out of the Albuquerque office, and she did an interview with Friedman in the early 70s, so a good 6 years before, or 5 years before Jess Marcel, and talked about her receiving the phone call from a reporter by the name of Johnny McBoyle at KSWS in Roswell about this late-breaking story. They tried to put it out over the wire service, and it was immediately intercepted by the FBI, stopping the transmission. Do not continue this transmission, and citing National Security Act. And so that was before Roswell Incident. That was before the book. And so, again, it was just a matter of people listening and the floodgates, essentially being ready to open.
Yeah, there is. I know that it's out there. There will be a smoking gun, and it's not going to come out of the Pentagon. I think that there's going to be something else out there that was, just overlooked and forgotten throughout history, where we can just go, hey, wait a minute here. This guy talked about it in 1951, or something like that. And I know that it has to be out there somewhere. I'm never. I talk to you about this all the time. You and I, the audience needs to understand that Don and I talk about the subject constantly, and it's gonna surface. I'm gonna keep my foot on the gas. One time, Don, somebody's going to be listening to you and I, and something's going to happen for us. You just wait. Our guest tonight,
we're not going to run over a tire.
No. This is Fade to Black. Our guest, Don Schmitt. We'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on the smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
Do you worry a lot? If you're forgetful, nervous, moody, or overwhelmed, chances are you're not protecting yourself from the ravaging effects of stress and anxiety. No matter the cause, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, your quality of life, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in as little as 1 to 2 weeks and increase your ability to recall facts, names, and numbers in 4 to 12 weeks. Calm and Clever was created by scientist Kurt Hendricks, a principal investigator in 2 NIH-funded studies on Alzheimer's disease. Try Calm and Clever for 2 months. You'll feel the difference. Call 1-800-758-8746 or go to calmandclever.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Don Schmitt, talking about his new book, Coverup at Roswell. It's a great read. You can get it on Amazon. And the links for the book are over at jimmychurchradio.com. You can click right there and take you straight to Amazon. Now, Don, I'm going to go through a few of these 20 questions because I think that they're very pertinent and they need to be addressed almost in its finality. And but one of the things in a more general sense is, what was going on the first week of July across this country? There were very, very significant events that happened that week. What is up with the first week of July?
It was like an invasion. I think any of your listeners, I've often commented that if they wanted to check out for themselves, they could go to any public library and pull out all the microfilm and all the microfiche. And for those 2 weeks, that last week of June through the first week of July of 1947, and you would see banner headline day after day after day about the flying discs, the arrival of the flying saucers, and the Kenneth Arnold sighting over Yakima, Washington on June 24th, and really kicking it off in his description of not the shape of the craft that he witnessed, but that they skipped like saucers across the water. And there was a reporter by the name of Bill Bichette at the Oregonian who then coined the phrase or the term flying saucer. And so it was the modern age of UFOs that was given birth. And the way, as we discussed earlier, the way it all cut off immediately after Roswell. And I think part of that also stemmed from the fact that the military was putting on demonstrations all around the country of this weather balloon with these radar reflector kites, trying to demonstrate that at a certain altitude, that as the air pressure would compress the balloon and create an elliptoid shape, and that even the reflection off the kites, that it would give this impression of this wingless, tailless craft at high altitude. And what it never addressed was the point that, but Roswell, it was on the ground in front of you, where you could pick it up and you could see how it was just nothing more than neoprene rubber and wooden sticks and flimsy foil that just, broke right up in your hands as you crumbled it. And again, that was part of the whole time frame back in that summer of 1947. where you had this flurry of sightings and reports, and even pilots who were ordered to shoot one down because, nobody had any answers at that time. We didn't know if we were dealing with some new Russian technology or even technology from another country as developed as far as captured German technology, that type of thing, or it was our own. But nonetheless, nobody was providing any answers. And then Roswell happens, and it was all they could do to contain it, sweep it under the carpet with the hope that they would, develop an origin, come up with answers as to a solution as to what we were dealing with, and then putting on the demonstrations, trying to reiterate that not just Roswell, but all the flying discs at that time could easily be explained away as weather balloons.
And then we can't ignore, I keep going back to this, but history has forgotten about the Rhodes photographs out of Phoenix, and yes, which accurately depict exactly what Kenneth Arnold had seen. Yes. Fascinating to me, but history now, again, that turned out to be a cover-up too as well. They confiscated the photographs. They did a character assassination on him. But for 1947, these photographs definitely show a pretty dang cool advanced aircraft of some kind.
And as you said, photographs, plural. There were 2 photographs. And clearly a crescent-shaped object, devoid of wings, tail. We're talking 1947. And I think what most ufologists aren't aware of is that after Roswell, Rhodes was then requested to come back to Washington. They wanted him to come back to the Pentagon for another line of questioning. So they were becoming more and more, I won't use the word fascinated or intrigued. They were becoming more desperate for answers. They realized they were dealing with hardware, someone else's aircraft, and at the time it was flying through our airspace with total impunity. They couldn't do anything about it.
Do you think this is what crashed at Roswell, the Rhodes photograph?
Well, I can't discount that possibility, but the Rhodes photograph was later, though. It would have been, Roswell was the late evening of July 2nd, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jimmy, I think the Rhodes photograph was the 7th, 8th, around that, or even the 9th.
Yeah, and the other part for me, when it comes to Rhodes, the craft itself, when you look at this, there was nothing on this planet, German or otherwise, that looked like this. Nobody's fantasy was going in this direction at that time. This was 1947.
Well, that's also, keeping in mind that Hollywood being the great copycat of reality, that up until that summer of 1947, even our depiction of alien spacecraft, whether it was Buck Rogers or Flash Gordon, we still had aliens flying in rockets.
Yes.
We didn't conceive anything beyond our own technology. And you have the flying discs and Hollywood being true to form, just like that. All of a sudden, all the movies, all the television series, portray alien spacecraft as flying saucers.
Now, let's go back to this dating now. Brazel waited 4 days, right, to report the crash. Now, if it was a craft like what's depicted in the Rhodes photograph, oh, by the way, it was published on 7/7/1947, the picture. So that's also interesting. And the reason why I want to go back to this dating, July 4th, July 3rd, 2nd, 1st, and then Kenneth Arnold comes into play here. This all happened around the same time. Brazel isn't sure exactly when it crashed, right? It's wide open spaces out there. You don't know.
Well, still, the lightning storm, the severe storm, was the late evening of July 2nd.
Right.
It was the early morning of July 3rd that Brazel, and he was the ranch foreman. It was his responsibility, and especially during the monsoon seasons of July and August, that they would shift the grazing patterns of the livestock, the cattle and the sheep, contingent on where the rain fell during a certain period of time. You could get, we've had ranches described to us, you could get 6 inches of rain in one pasture and there you drop in another. So it was his job after a bad storm to, again, where is all the water? Where do I need to, again, place the livestock for their sustenance? And so it would make perfect sense that it was the very next morning, and he does come upon this huge debris field. And he's never seen anything like this wreckage, this material, in his life. And it's covering such a large area that he just can't gather it up and toss it into the back of a pickup truck, and end of story. As evidenced by his neighbors, as evidenced by a state police officer by the name of Robert Scroggins, as evidenced by the townspeople in Corona, the people at the general store, at Wade's Bar, and then finally going into Roswell and reporting it to the Sheriff George Wilcox. His other big concern is who's going to clean up all that wreckage? It covers such a wide area that I'm not going to do it. I'm not responsible. Who is? Who's going to come out there and clear that all away? And so, it just continues to demonstrate that there was so much of it. And that was precisely, again, going through the chronology of events, that when Major Marcel first arrived at the site, the first reaction he had was, my God, it covered such a large area of land. There was so much of it.
And so why do you think he waited for 4 days?
Well, he was the foreman. He did not have, as we've been able to demonstrate, he did not have any hired hands on the ranch at that time. He was in charge of 700 head of cattle and 700 head of sheep. He was in charge of a ranch 75,000 acres in size.
Right.
And it was quite simple that he needed to finish his chores for the week. He needed to, complete his duties as the ranch foreman on the ranch, and then it was on Sunday morning, his one and only day off, that he makes that long trek, that 3.5-hour drive down to Roswell, where he first reports it. But during that time, in the Corona area, he has still made every effort in trying to get answers. His neighbors, the townspeople of Corona, I mentioned the state police officer, people at Wade's Bar, even a rodeo over the 4th of July, as witnesses describe pieces of the wreckage being passed from person to person. So they're trying to come up with answers. And then, failing all that, he finally realizes, I'm going to have to go down to Roswell and see if anybody there can help me and who's going to come and clean all that wreckage up.
Now, one of my biggest questions, and again, I've talked to you about this before, is with all of the secrecy that is surrounding Roswell and the Army airfield at that time because of the nuclear secrets and what was going on with the Cold War and everything, it was extreme secrecy. Why go and generate a press release? Why do that? Because that's and who up in the chain of command would approve something like this because it was so extreme? I mean, why do that unless it was true?
And it's amazing how many people to this day still believe that it was nothing more than a knee-jerk reaction, this overreaction on the part of either Major Marcel or the public information officer, First Lieutenant Walter Hott, or even the very base commander, Colonel William Blanchard. Now, we talked about Brazel, the rancher, bringing the wreckage into Roswell to the sheriff's office. That's Sunday afternoon, July 6th. Now, a reporter by the name of Frank Joyce at radio station KGFL, he contacts the sheriff via phone for some late-breaking news, for his next newscast. And Sheriff Wilcox, says, I think there's somebody here you should talk to. So it's the first time that the rancher has actually gone public. He's talking to a member of the press. So the story is leaked out. The media has the exclusive. They have the story before anyone in authority knows about it. And Joyce, to his credit, as a great journalist, he doesn't say, well, I need you to come right over to the radio station and I want you to tell the whole world about this right now. He encourages him, well, we need to be good patriots, good citizens. I strongly urge you to report this to the military. The 509th is just south of town. They need to be informed in the event it's one of theirs. And they place the call, and they speak directly to Major Marcel. He comes to the sheriff's office, he checks it out, and it's important enough that it's a 4th of July weekend, it's a holiday weekend, and he immediately informs his boss, his base commander, Colonel Blanchard. And it's important enough that he doesn't just send a couple of low-ranked GIs to go humor the ranch or go check it out. No, he sends out his head of intelligence, Major Jesse Marcel, and the head of counterintelligence, Captain Sheridan Cavett, in the event it's something foreign. So he sends out 2 high-ranking officers to check this out. In the meantime, Colonel Blanchard calls his boss, going up the chain of command, the 8th Air Force over at Fort Worth. And General Roger Ramey is visiting with family over the holiday weekend in Denton, Texas, and his chief of staff, Colonel Thomas DuBose, takes the call. He calls the Pentagon, and that's when General Clements McMillan calls him back and says, I want some of the wreckage brought to Washington immediately. The point being that Washington already has some of the wreckage in hand by late evening, July 6th. When does the press release go out? On Tuesday, noon, Mountain Standard Time, on July 8th.
So why?
A day and a half later.
I know. And this, I've always tried to wrap my head around this, Don. Everything was done perfectly, always in the military, especially back then. You didn't do anything unless somebody told you what to do. You didn't do anything willy-nilly. You certainly didn't release a press release like this unless it was fully approved and they knew exactly what they wanted to get out, because everything was top secret. Everything was top secret. You didn't want to tip your hand to the Russians about anything, right? Well, this was approved. Walter Haut wrote this with conviction, right? It was done perfectly.
And it was dictated to him by the base commander, Colonel Blanchard.
Correct.
And it was after they had the staff meeting that morning, and according to Walter Haut, and even his sealed statement, General Ramey and Colonel DuBose were at that very meeting. So the arbiters of the cover-up were present. They were all there. They all signed on to the press release, and quite simply for the fact that it already had gotten out, it had already been leaked out to the press.
Now,
they knew about it.
Why do you think that they thought that those photographs of the weather balloon that were taken in Ramey's office, right, with Jesse Marcel, that the public would actually buy that debris being put onto an airplane and flown anywhere? Right? I mean, what? I can't buy that. I just can't. Why do you think they thought the weather balloon story would pass?
It was a major gamble on their part. They tossed the dice, and as you mentioned in the previous segment, that they were that close to this breaking open if the press, if the public would not have accepted the whole straw man. First, it's built up by the press release, and then it's torn down. You read the verbiage of the press release. It doesn't mention the rancher. It doesn't mention anyone but Major Marcel. And where's Major Marcel? He's on his way to Fort Worth for the weather balloon press conference. Where's the rancher? He's been abducted by the military.
Right.
Where's Colonel Blanchard? He announces he's going on leave.
He's on vacation.
After.
Right.
Yes, but after a 4th of July weekend. Why do you go, and I ask anybody in the military, why do you go on leave after the holiday weekend when you wouldn't be docked those extra days if you were to take your leave over the holiday, for example? So it demonstrates that this was all calibrated. This was all thought out. They had to essentially create this diversion. They couldn't deny something had crashed, something was recovered. They put out the press release, flying disc has been recovered. And then to watch through the press the slow evolution into the weather balloon. And then the press conference. And as I said, they tossed the dice and they won.
Is there?
And I'm sure they breathed a sigh of relief because it could have just as well been thrown right back in their faces.
Is there any debris out there? Is there any real debris right now? Private hands in a private collection somewhere. Is there any debris out there?
I remain optimistic that whether in an old footlocker or down in a crawl space or even out at the very debris field, we've had to date now 5 archaeological digs at the debris field site. And we have found a number of interesting fragments that even in a radioisotope test in specific laboratories that they're strange. There are certain alloys, certain elements that should not be there. And as a result, it doesn't prove conclusively it's off the planet, it's extraterrestrial. But they shouldn't be out there. And, you know, Jimmy, there's one thing that when we were talking earlier about the military still being out there, and it's an ongoing ritual for us every time we arrive at the debris field. And we get we deboard our cars, and the first thing we do is we look up and we wave at the satellite, you know. We're back, you know, that almost as an act of defiance. But this happened just 4 years ago. Now, mind you, again, this is open range. This is open pasture grazing range for the cattle and the sheep, which are like goats. They're notorious in that they eat everything in their path. And no rancher, no ranch hand would leave anything out there at the very notion that the livestock are going to devour it. And it could be to their demise. It could kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the last 5 years, someone went out there and sprayed nails all over a wide area of that and only that area, that site.
What?
And why would somebody do that?
I don't know. Why?
You wouldn't do it as a prank. Would you do it because you know we're out there on a regular basis with metal detectors, with subterranean radar, that you're essentially creating all these false signals? You're creating, as far as you're contaminating the site to the point that now it almost makes it impossible for us to find anything because there's a good chance it's going to be a nail. And we believe we've cleaned up the area. We've spent a lot of hours, a lot of days out there, retrieving every last, contaminant, every last nail.
Yeah, that makes a metal detection stupid. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Now
but the point is, who would do that?
Right.
Who would do that?
Yeah,
and
the
why?
government. I'll tell you right now. It was somebody from the military. Have you? Okay. What about Jesse's, the original Marcel home.
Yes.
Who owns that, and why not buy that house and tear that sucker down?
Well, we've discussed that on numerous occasions. Even the executive producer of our Roswell movie, Paul Davids, we had that very discussion a number of years ago about buying the house when it was on the market. And it's gone through numerous ownerships. It's presently owned again by private owners, and unfortunately, that old patio that has always been suspect. A family room was built over that many years ago, and at one point, we even had Hans Adam, the Prince of Liechtenstein, who offered to, I'll pay to have the house demolished, and I'll build it up even more, spectacularly, to replace it. We just would like to get beneath that concrete slab. So that is still on our agenda. We're still going to do that at some point. It mainly comes down to just the funding and dealing with owners who are willing to allow us to demolish that area of the house.
Yeah, it's a pretty famous house, too, as well. It would be a shame, but kind of got to get to the bottom of this. Would you tell me the truth? I'm going to ask you right now. Tell me the truth, Don. Have you ever handled a piece of the debris yourself?
No. We've had people that have, we've had many false alarms.
Right.
And even without even bringing it up, the whole slide situation.
Right.
We've had numerous witnesses who have claimed that they had photographs of either wreckage or of bodies. We've had people who claim that they arrived at the site long before the military did. And we're talking again at a time when just about all the witnesses were still with us.
Right.
But we've had even more so false alarms regarding wreckage, pieces of the actual hardware. And Kevin Randall would have to attest to the fact all the times we made trips down to New Mexico and elsewhere with the hope, with the promise that we were going to be able to actually handle a piece of the Holy Grail, so to speak. And we always came up short. We always came up disappointed in realizing that it was a false alarm. It wasn't anything of the sort, but nonetheless, you have to check it out because all it's going to take is one time. And we still, hope remains eternal, but nonetheless, I do remain convinced that there is physical evidence either still out at the crash site, the debris field, or in the personal possession of someone who was there back in 1947. Yes.
Don Schmitt.
I'm still
Don Schmitt, thank you so much, my friend. Always great to have you on the show. The book is wonderful, and everybody, it's very simple. Just go over to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the link right there. It'll take you over to Amazon and get yourself a copy of Coverup at Roswell. It's a great read. Thank you so much, Don, and don't ever stop rolling that rock uphill.
Well, thank you, Jimmy, and we never see each other enough, and I always look forward to the next time.
Absolutely.
So, you're a dear friend.
Okay,
thank
man.
you.
I'll talk to you, Don. Thank you so much, my friend.
You too. Thank you, Jimmy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Don Schmitt. The book is Coverup at Roswell. The links are right there. Just released on Amazon. It's just an absolutely great read. Great read. Go and pick it up. Thank you, Don. Oh, Roswell. Frustrating. It's the best story. It's the best evidence that we have, right? Oh, man. And I'm just glad Don is still on the case. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back. I'll take some phone calls and all of the news that you know absolutely nothing about. We'll talk a little Jim Mars. I'll be right back.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter. But listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night and you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. Get the tea.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. Get the tea.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
I'm Matt Ray with America's First News. We all know if you're planning a trip, you should shop and compare, right? But why endlessly search the web when you don't have to? Flight Services helps you find the lowest possible airfare. Talk directly to a travel pro right now for the best deals available. Their travel pros have additional discounts not found on websites, and Flight Services provides 24-hour customer service. Call toll-free 844-845-9944. That's 844-845-9944.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring two Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The two full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129 and use the promo code JCRTWS and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Thank you to Don Schmitt. Great conversation tonight. The book is Coverup at Roswell. And what I really enjoyed about the book, and I touched upon it a little bit with Don, but you have to understand, this is like the condensed version of all of the facts of the Coverup. And it's really, really, really well written. I like the books that I like to read, even though I love my Clive Cussler and my Dirk Pitt, but I like facts. You know, I just like that nonfiction, just give me the real stuff. That's what I like. And there you go. All right, I'm going to open up the phone lines. You're going to get all of that. It's the condensed version.
I'm opening up the phone lines right now, 323-825-5045 or 323-275-9695. I've got some news I want to go over, as well as, I know you guys want to talk about Jim Mars, and nothing would make me happier to do that. Okay, we're going to do a special tomorrow night. It is Fader night, and I think it is just so fitting and so cool that tomorrow night is our 700th show, and we are able to dedicate that show to Jim Mars and his memory, because he was such a cool, fun, happy, smart, intense guy, kind, a real, just he was the complete package. So we're able to do that tomorrow night, and we're going to have fun, and we're going to do it that way. Okay? All right, so we'll do that tomorrow night. Let's go to the phone, see what's happening over there. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hi, Jimmy. I just wanted to comment on tonight's show about Roswell.
Yeah, what's your name?
This is Nathan from Ohio.
Hi, Nathan from Ohio. What's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to ask you whether or not you thought maybe the crash was intentional on the part of the aliens, or whatever they are.
This is, that's an interesting take. That it was intentional. Could be. This is, okay, I'm going to give you my actual real gut feeling on this. All right? When we go and visit with all of our technology today, right? We've got a lot of technology, stealth technology. We got rockets. We got hyper this. We got stuff. We got cool craft, right? We've got the space shuttle, and we've been to the moon, and we've got a space program, and the X-37B, and we've got the International Space Station. We know how to float satellites out there. We know what to do with geostationary polar orbits. We have technology, don't we? Right? Okay. Why can't we land something on Mars? Why? Why? We haven't got that atmosphere figured out, right? We literally fly stuff to Mars and surround it with frigging balloons and bounce it off of the surface and hope that it's going to stop and still work. That's our technology, Nathan. With that atmosphere, which we know we can't deal with that atmosphere. Okay, we can't. So when somebody says to me, with all this technology, ET, man, they fly across the stars, they fly across the galaxies, they get here and they just crash. Well, yeah, that's what we're doing with Mars. We crash land everything there. So when that technology, whoever it is, that ET, they get here, they're dealing with our atmosphere, they're dealing with our storms, they're dealing with everything else, and then we're throwing radar at them and electromagnetic interference and Lord knows what else. Yeah, I could see them crashing. Absolutely. Why? It's what we do. We do the exact same thing. You would think that with watching sci-fi movies and science fiction and everything else, these cool that we would just cruise up to Mars and just go in and land and have a good time. No, we have to bounce stuff off the surface there too. So did ET intentionally crash here? No, well, not intentionally, but I think they crashed.
I can see that. I just think it's interesting how we've evolved since then.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, evolved technologically, evolved.
Oh.
I mean, if you put any stock into, like, I mean, even if it wasn't intentional, it might even have been, like, almost meant to happen.
Right. Nathan, you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you something else, and thank you for the phone call, my friend. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I'll say this. We don't even have our own atmosphere figured out. Aircraft, air travel, none of that stuff is foolproof. Rocket launches, space shuttle, taking off or re-entry. None of that stuff was ever guaranteed. And we live here. This is us. This is our world. We don't have it down. There's no guarantee if you take off in a plane that everything is going to be okay. I was discussing that the other day on the show. Air travel is faith, is pure faith. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? You're live.
Yes, Jimmy.
Yes.
Hey, this is Frankie Four Fingers.
Hey, Frankie Four Fingers. How are you, my friend?
Good. I was just listening to, about Roswell, and I just had an idea flash in my mind about, couldn't that have been a false flag, maybe to distract from something else that was going on at that time?
Absolutely. Absolutely, that is in play. Absolutely. Look, everything when it comes to Roswell is on the table. And when you go, and I was discussing this with Don tonight, it's really true. You go through, when you land in Albuquerque, you're looking at an Air Force base, right there. You're looking at Sandia National. All of this high technology is there because it's in the middle of nowhere. You have White Sands, all of the missile testing, all of the atomic testing, all of that research, all of the knowledge of the world, of our solar system was right there in Roswell. You need to really wrap your head around that. It's a very, very special place. And back then, I'm telling you, everything that, as far as technology goes, was going on there. And that goes with the missile testing, that goes with radar, atomic, secrets, insanity. So, and aircraft. So, could there have been something there that was ultra secret that crashed and it had to be covered? Absolutely, no question that is a possibility. And I'll give you. I'll give you another.
I was just going to add to that. I was just wondering what else in the world was going on at that time to draw attention to Roswell versus, hey, we got something else over here we want nobody to see. So they throw that at you. I'm just curious, was there anything else going on at that time, other parts of the country or the world, that they're trying to draw attention away from?
The other part, and you're right. So if we start to look at it like this, like it's terrestrial, right? That is of Earth. We have Russia trying to spy on us too, as well. Right? They want to know what's going on in White Sands. They want to know what's going on with all of our testing. The nuclear race was on, man. That was a no-joke situation. So could Russia have had some really cool jet aircraft, something that they had developed and stolen from the Nazis, flown over here and was spying on us, and it crashed there? And Brazel thought that it was a flying saucer because it was some kind of crazy looking jet aircraft that crashed out there. Could be, all of the investigators, Jesse Marcel and everybody heads out there. They're looking at a crashed craft. They don't want to say it's Russian, right? They don't want the Russians to know that they've got their hands on the craft. So they say it's a flying saucer. Is that a possibility? Of course that's a possibility. Absolutely. And the other part?
Well, I know they're trying to draw, the attention to that one spot, but what else in the world could they be maybe drawing attention away from, like some nuke test or something they're testing somewhere else? We got to draw attention away from that area. Let's cause this.
Well, exactly. Now, the other part is, why draw attention to Roswell when all of those secrets are going on? Why do a press release at all? Why talk about this at all? Why just squash it from the word go? Take Brazel, throw him into jail, give him some money, get him out of the picture. They already started to squash everything from the word go. They turned the press away and said nothing to see here, right? And they squash. Why attract attention to Roswell when all of that secret stuff is going on now? Okay, so we just discussed the terrestrial side. Let me give you the other thing. And this is where, for me, this is not going out on a limb. This is where I think that there's something probably much more legit going on here, which is this. E.T. has been doing drive-bys here for millions of years. Millions, maybe a billion years. They know that Earth is here. Thousands of civilizations out there around our galaxy know about planet Earth, and they've known about it for a long time, right? And so they're doing drive-bys. They've got probes and things, and they're monitoring, and they're videoing, and they're sending back information. Okay, humans are now doing this. Man, they got cars. Man, check this out. They got cars, right? Okay, so they're monitoring, and they find out about nuclear stuff. And now they're sending probes and checking out where the exact ground zero of everything, right? Alamogordo, right. White Sands, the nuclear devices right there. Why not? That is way beyond coincidence for me. If you're going to look at it like this, and for the government to come out and say that it was a crashed disk, I mean, why do that? Why, when you have all of the secrecy that is going on in Roswell? Have you been to Roswell?
I've flown over it. I have flown over the Trinity site. We've done a lot of military exercises out in that area.
Okay,
I've flown over that whole area. So
you know how small of a town that is. Okay.
Oh yeah, it's very small. It's out in the middle of nowhere.
It's out in the middle of nowhere. And that when you drive around that city, there's one thing that just keeps rolling over your head. This was the technology center of everything. So back in 1945, 44 through 47, 48, 49, 50, what the environment was like there. You didn't go into a coffee shop and start talking about nuclear bombs. Right? You didn't do that. Everything was in lockdown. Everything was in lockdown. Right? And no matter what, it was pride. It was the American way. We're in this crazy technology race with Russia going on at that time. It was insane, right? And that's what Roswell was about. So to have this incident happen the way that it did at that time in 1947 speaks volumes about what the military said about what happened. And there's just no way that they just let a press officer write up a press release like that and get it into the newspaper unless it was A, the truth, and B, they wanted it there to begin with. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't. There's just no other way to look at it. This is when somebody comes at me with this going, oh, come on, it was just a weather balloon. It was a cover. It was just a weather balloon. This was Roswell. Nobody gets that. This is where all of the technology of everything was concentrated. It was all there. And secrecy, the military, science, education, universities, everybody that was all the top physicists, all the science, everything was focused right there. So that is exactly the reason why all of this plays out the way that I think that it did. It wasn't an accident. Right. That press release, man, Frankie, that press release was not an accident. You know, I come from a military family, and my dad was a musician. He wasn't some, top secret guy with top secret clearances. But I can tell you how the military runs. You go off base and you go into civilian land, right, where it's civilians and normalcy. That's a different world. On a military base, it is a military culture. It's the way that it is. And I'm telling you, that you do not do anything without being told what to do. And that is double checked. And even that is double checked, right? That's just the way that it is. Well, it's the military.
I realize what you're saying there. I did 22 years in it, so.
I mean, could you ever do anything on your own? No.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Ever.
Double and triple check.
Ever. It's all about redundancy, and so Roswell blows my mind. I know that the culture that is there, and certainly what it was like back then. It's something that just wasn't. I just want to say this very openly. you would not break the cone of silence. You would not be anti-American. You wouldn't do anything that was wrong. You wouldn't. We just came off of World War II, just months before that, man. This was 1947, and it's just the way that it was, and today we lose sight of all of that, where now everything is anti-government, everything is anti-military, everything is a protest, as it should be. But that's the way it is now. It wasn't that way back then. It was a different world.
I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
When we're going to get an update on Mount Adams?
Well, there's a couple of things going on there. James Gilliland just got a redunculous telescope. I don't know if you've seen it, but he just texted me pictures of it. This thing is the size of a small bus. So that thing is sitting out there now. Yeah, it's pretty big. It's like 2 feet in diameter, maybe, 6-8 feet long. It's huge. It's huge. So that's sitting out there, and they're looking at the mountain. I don't want to comment further on that. I do know that our friend Brad Olson is planning a little hiking expedition up there in about 30 days. I think there's 4 of our friends are going up there. I don't want to drop names right now. I'll say Brad because he's public. But so they're all going to go up there.
Okay. Well, also, we met with Mike Barra over the weekend up seeing George Norrie up there at Everett.
And how did that go?
Oh, that was awesome. We loved it.
Did Mike behave?
And did Mike behave? Yeah. The only thing he's mentioned when I asked him about what he thought, he says all he wants to do is see you climb that mountain.
Yeah, because he wants to see me fall off of it. See, that's the deal. But Mike and I are the same age. He knows that the odds of me hiking Mount Adams are similar to his hiking Mount Adams. And the closest thing that Mike would get to to Mount Adams is the closest strip bar. And that's as close as he is.
No, that wouldn't be Trout Lake then.
No, it wouldn't be Trout Lake. No, and Mike is right. I mean, I would love to be able to hike up there, or just jump in a helicopter. I wouldn't even rent a helicopter because it's too windy. But I would like any of us to go up there. We kid, we joke. Of course, we would like to get to the bottom of this. Hiking up there, I've gotten a bunch of email, by the way, from people that have, we keep saying hike. It's not a hike. It's a mountain climb. Okay. There is no hiking. You don't just pack a couple of sandwiches and a bag of Cheetos and head up the side of the hill, like you're, walking through your backyard. That's not the case here. Now there is, an easier way up the mountain, up the east side, which is a common trail, and you go up to Heroes Camp. I've gotten different conflicting stories on this, that it has been closed down. There's been a couple of deaths, and they don't allow that anymore. I've gotten email saying that it is open and you can go up there at certain times of the year. I've heard that. Nothing official, but the side of the mountain on the west side, where this opening is, that is not this hike that you take up on the east side. This is straight up a glacier ice face cliff. That is a professional mountain climb. That is done by dudes that go to Everest. And I do believe that side of the mountain, you can't climb it. There is no climbing on that side of the mountain. Only on the other side.
Okay, well.
So I don't know.
I guess that'll be more discussion for when we meet up there for Fade to Black up there at ECETI.
Yeah, that retreat's going to be a lot of fun. But see, let me ask you this: you looked at the front of that. You discovered everybody. I want everybody to understand who's talking here. This is the man that discovered the entrance on the top of Mount Adams. That's who we're speaking to right now. And the world thanks you for that. I think you got like 500,000 views, dude, on YouTube. You got to love that, right? Is this, you looked at the mountain enough. Do you think that even if you hiked up the east side of the mountain and made it up there, that you would be able to see around the corner to where this face is, where the entrance is? I'm not so sure.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
It's just the way the angle of everything is, and plus the only way you could really see it is to hike to the very top, to that peak, and then rappel down. But
rappel down, right?
You know, the logistics and the safety factor just would be outrageous.
Yeah, when I look at it on satellite, on Google Satellite, going up the east side, you have that peak in the middle, and so you get up there, you can't just look. You have a mountain in the way that is blocking you from the peak that is over on the west side where this entrance is, where this cave or tunnel or whatever we're calling it these days. So I'm not even sure if Brad, when he gets up there, that he'll be able to see anything. But it's going to be cool, right. And let's see what they find out. I think they're going to do it in about 30 days.
Okay, well, also I can do a little research about maybe getting a helicopter, too. I know a few people.
Yeah, there you go. You're the pilot. Thank you, Frankie.
You're welcome. You have a good night. Thanks for the chat.
Yeah, give my best to the family. Thank you so much. Oh, I hate that when that happens. Sorry about that, Frankie. Check this out. I've got a couple of minutes here. I got to get these stories in. Panasonic is using artificial intelligence to detect when you are drowsy, when you are driving in a car. Yes, the tech includes an infrared sensor, environment sensor, facial capture camera, and a thermal sensation system that activates the car's AC or alarms if all else fails. Panasonic came up with 5 different levels of potential drowsiness. Not drowsy at all, slightly drowsy, drowsy, very drowsy, and seriously drowsy. Those are their terms. The system aims to figure out exactly where you are on that scale and take the appropriate measures. To do so, the camera uses AI facial recognition to detect when your eyelids are starting to sag and your facial expressions. If your eyelids droop at the speed and the speed of your blinks slow down drastically, for instance, you're likely on a level 5 journey to Sleepyville. All told, it can detect around 1,800 facial expressions and blink parameters related to drowsiness. AI is coming to a car near you. Now, Puerto Rico is pinning its future on medical marijuana production to lift it out of its dire straits of their financial crisis. That's right. They're over $70 billion in debt right now. And Puerto Rico's new governor legalized medical marijuana by decree 2 years ago. Democratic Governor Ricardo Rossello signed a measure last month which legalizes and regulates the plant for medicinal use. The island's Treasury Secretary estimated that the industry could generate up to $100 million a year and help cut Puerto Rico's unemployment rate, presently around 12%. And that will conclude another episode of Fade to Black. I do have to thank Don Schmitt. He's one of my favorite guests that come on this show. And tonight, having one of our friends depart this planet, like Jim Mars, and for Don to come in on the show tonight was really, really cool. Tomorrow night, we are going to do a Jim Mars special event right here, and we're able to do it. How cool is this? On our 700th show. So that'll be tomorrow night. We'll have all of the best of Jim Mars moments. We'll be doing that. We're going to get a bunch of really cool images together to share with everybody. Of course, we'll tell some stories. We'll take your phone calls, and we'll talk about Jim Mars all night long for a really cool Fade to Black Fader night. John Rappaport will be stopping by with his No More Fake Newsroom. All of that tomorrow night on Thursday. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamari-Allen. Show is produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is only copyrighted 2017 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Until tomorrow night, our Jim Mars special, I want everybody to be safe
Go Beckley Tepe.